You were never too sensitive. You were just too awake in a world that's built on sedation. They didn't need to scream at you. They didn't have to raise a hand or even raise their voice. They just made you feel wrong too much. Too quiet, too intense, too emotional, until you walked out of the room carrying a silence that wasn't even yours. Jaw tight, chest aching, and somewhere deep inside that question again. Maybe it's me. But Carl Jung knew better. Long before modern psychology coined terms like gaslighting or emotional neglect, he understood something most people still miss. When a person hasn't faced their shadow, the unacknowledged, repressed parts of themselves, they will hurt others. Quietly, elegantly, through absence, not action, through silence, not slurs. It's not always in what they do. It's in what they withhold. And if you've never learned to see the pattern, you'll keep inviting it in, thinking it's fate, thinking you're unlucky, or broken, or just someone who cares too much. But what if none of that is true? What if the people who hurt you weren't reflecting your value? They were revealing what you've been taught to accept. This is where the first of Jung's 44 truths begins. Truth 1. If you don't define your value, the world will price you cheap. Every time you keep the peace by swallowing your voice, every time you laugh when it's not funny, every time you put someone else's comfort above your own truth, you build a world where your worth is negotiable, where your silence becomes currency, and someone always profits. Truth 2. The ones who benefit from your silence will always call your truth selfish. The moment you stop people-pleasing, the backlash begins. You've changed, they'll say. You're so difficult now. But it's not your honesty they hate. It's their loss of control. Truth 3. The shadow isn't evil. It's power unexpressed. That anger in your gut, that tension in your jaw when someone crosses a line. That's not a problem to be fixed. That's your protector. Your shadow isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to defend you. Truth 4. People don't listen to what you say. They respond to what you tolerate. You can say, "Don't treat me like that." But if you stay when they do it again, your presence rewrites your protest. Boundaries without action are just background noise. Truth 5. Every apology you make for your pain is a lesson in self-erasure. Sorry, I'm just tired. Sorry if I'm overreacting. Jung would ask, why do you apologize for being human? Who taught you that feeling was a flaw? Truth 6. Trauma doesn't make you seek love. It makes you seek survival that looks like love. If safety meant shrinking, if affection meant performance, you'll crave what hurt you because it feels familiar. Truth 7. If someone's love requires your betrayal of self, it's not love. It's a transaction. One where the price is always you. Peace kept at the cost of your dignity is not peace. It's a prison. Truth 8. The mask you wear to be loved will one day suffocate you. The always happy, always available version of you may keep the peace, but at some point you'll forget what your real face looks like underneath. Truth 9. Emotional labor without reciprocity is exploitation dressed as devotion. You hold space, absorb pain, explain endlessly, and they call it love. But what are you receiving if it flows one way? It's not love. it's extraction. Truth 10. You teach people how to treat you not with your words, but with what you allow. The first time might be a mistake, but the second, that's your silence telling them it's okay. Truth 11. Just because someone understands you doesn't mean they deserve access to you. Insight without integrity is manipulation in disguise. They may read your soul like a book, but that doesn't mean they should be holding it. Truth 12. You're not too sensitive. You're just finally listening. That heaviness after a conversation, the gut tightening when a message pops up, it's not overthinking. It's your nervous system telling the truth your mouth still struggles to say. Truth 13. Loyalty to dysfunction isn't virtue, it's programming. You stay, you justify, you soften your pain until it's palatable. But Jung would ask, is this loyalty? Or is it fear of loss of change, of being alone? Staying in pain doesn't make you loyal, it makes you lost. Truth 14. If someone only loves you when you're easy to love, it's not love, it's consumption. The moment you say no, get sick, or express a need, they withdraw. That's not rejection, that's revelation. Truth 15. Over-explaining isn't clarity. It's a trauma response dressed as logic. You defend what should be obvious. You clarify what was never questioned. But this isn't about understanding. It's about a fear that being misunderstood will make you unlovable. Now let me tell you a story. She was the quiet one, the soft voice in the group, the girl who always smiled even when the joke stung, who let people interrupt, who nodded through discomfort, who kept the peace no matter the cost. But one day, a switch flipped. In the middle of a conversation that turned cruel, she didn't laugh. She didn't nod. She didn't explain. She simply said, "Don't speak to me like that." And she left. Her hands shook. Her breath was tight, but her spine stayed straight. For the first time, she chose her safety over their approval. Carl Jung believed we all go through a symbolic death, the death of the false self. That day, she buried the girl who mistook endurance for love. And in her place rose someone dangerous, someone no longer interested in being likable. Let me ask you this. When did you learn that silence was safer than truth? Was it the cold tone of a parent? A friend who ghosted after you opened up? A teacher who made you shrink? That moment. That's when your voice went underground. And from that day on, people could harm you in soft, polite, passive ways because the part of you meant to scream had gone quiet. But it's not too late. Because these truths aren't meant to make you bitter. They're meant to make you brave. And now we go deeper. Into the next 15 truths. Into projection, narcissism boundaries, and the weaponization of empathy. Truth 16. Healing will make you unrecognizable to those who only knew you broken. You'll hear it again, you've changed. But it's not the kind of change they admire. What they really mean is you're no longer easy to control. You don't bend like you used to. You don't explain things that should be obvious. You don't stay in places that echo your pain. And for people who mistook your wounds for warmth, the transformation will feel like betrayal. Truth 17. If love is not allowed to evolve, it will expire. Relationships don't crumble because of one argument. They decay slowly when one person outgrows the dynamic and the other clings to what used to be. You grow, they resist, and love turns stale. What once felt like intimacy becomes inertia. Truth 18. People fear your boundaries when they thrived on your lack of them. When you start saying no, they'll call you distant, guarded, maybe even cruel. But listen closely, that's not your truth. That's their entitlement speaking. Truth 19. When you stop over-explaining, manipulators lose their script. They rely on your need to be understood to keep the conversation going. But the moment your no becomes complete without a comma, their power dissolves. Clarity, once internal, becomes your shield. Truth 20. Empathy is sacred until it's used as currency. You felt it. You give hold, space, stretch thin to accommodate others' pain. But love without discernment isn't compassion, it's collapse. Protect your empathy. It's a gift, not a debt. Truth 21. The desire to be understood can make you tolerate what should never be tolerated. You keep explaining yourself to someone who's already decided not to hear you. But the problem isn't your lack of clarity. It's their resistance to seeing you whole. Truth 22. When someone breaks your boundary and then gets offended, you've revealed their expectations. Healthy people adjust. Unhealthy people retaliate. It's not about your need being unreasonable. It's about their plan, never including your self-respect. Truth 23. You're not responsible for the emotional response of those you've outgrown. Guilt will whisper, stay soft, stay small. But growth isn't cruelty. It's truth finally spoken. And if your healing hurts them, it's because their comfort relied on your pain. Truth 24. People don't leave because you became toxic. They leave when you became self-respecting, when you stopped absorbing blame, when you stopped saying yes to things that drained you. That's not abandonment. That's clarity moving furniture. Truth 25. Your triggers are not flaws, they're messengers. When someone says you're too reactive, pause. Ask yourself what wound just got touched. Your reaction isn't a weakness. It's your body remembering something it was never allowed to feel. Truth 26. Projection is the most insidious form of deception. They'll call you manipulative for having a boundary, selfish for needing space. But look deeper, what they see in you is often the part of themselves they're too afraid to meet. Truth 27. Some people are drawn to your dysfunction because it helps them avoid their own. You were easier when you were anxious, overgiving, uncertain. But when you heal, you become a mirror, and they don't like what's reflected back. Truth 28. If someone withdraws love as punishment, it was never love. It was leverage. You felt it, the cold silence after a boundary, the distance after honesty. That's not someone protecting their heart. That's someone trying to control yours. Truth 29. You don't owe anyone a courtroom explanation for your boundary. They'll ask why debate your tone, demand reasons. But your boundary isn't a question. It's a door. And it doesn't need to be defended, just locked. Truth 30. You don't have to keep performing the version of you that made others comfortable. You've grown. You don't laugh at the same things. You don't shrink to fit. That's not arrogance. That's evolution. Let's pause here because this is the moment Jung spoke of the gravitational pull of self-concept. You attract what you believe about yourself. So if your core belief is, I must be easy to love, you'll attract people who require difficulty to feel satisfied. If your mantra is, I don't deserve too much. You'll settle for crumbs dressed as care. The universe doesn't respond to what you want. It reflects who you think you are. This next set of truths, it's about rewriting that belief system not on paper, but in your nervous system. We'll explore how to protect your energy, how to stop trauma bonding with mirrors of your past pain, and how to stand in such deep self-respect that chaos no longer has access to you. Truth 31. Your peace will irritate those who fed on your chaos. As you begin to heal, you'll notice it the louder they get, the calmer you become. You're no longer triggered by the same games, no longer participating in emotional theater. Your silence used to mean submission. Now it's protection. They'll call it cold, but it's really clarity, finally uncompromised. Truth 32. If you have to beg someone to understand you, they've already chosen to misunderstand you. True understanding doesn't demand performance. It doesn't ask you to water yourself down or rehearse your worth. Love should never feel like an audition. Truth 33. Some people don't want resolution. They want control. They'll stall, provoke, avoid not to fix, but to keep power. Jung warned us those afraid of their unconscious will try to dominate yours, because facing themselves is scarier than breaking you. Truth 34. The most dangerous gaslighting isn't from others. It's the voice in your head saying, maybe I'm too much. Maybe I'm asking for too much. But that voice didn't start with you. It was planted by someone who benefited when you questioned your worth. Truth 35. Self-abandonment wears many masks. Loyalty, sacrifice, love, even spirituality. But anytime you disappear just to be accepted, it isn't devotion. It's disconnection. A sacred wound pretending to be a virtue. Truth 36. You are not difficult. You are simply done self-destructing quietly. Let them label you. Let them call you cold, dramatic, distant. Labels don't stick when you live in your own truth. Truth 37. People who never had boundaries will always see yours as cruelty. But their discomfort is not your responsibility. You weren't born to be everyone's emotional translator. Truth 38. Manipulators confuse empathy with access. They think if you understand them, you owe them. But empathy is not a contract. Understanding someone doesn't mean you must allow them to hurt you. Truth 39. You can love someone and still walk away. That isn't selfishness, it's sovereignty. True love doesn't ask you to disappear. It invites you to exist fully and be seen deeply. Truth 40. If your absence disturbs them more than your pain ever did, it was never love, it was dependency. They don't miss you. They miss the version of you who never asked for anything. Truth 41. The more you heal, the more boring you'll seem to those addicted to drama. They'll say you're distant. They'll say you've changed. And they're right. Because calm no longer feels like emptiness. It feels like home. Truth 42. If love requires your exhaustion, it's not love, it's performance. You weren't meant to earn basic care with your suffering. You're not here to audition for affection. Truth 43. Some people bond through wounds, not values. They confuse pain for passion. When you begin to heal, the connection dissolves not because you failed, but because the wound they loved is no longer bleeding. Truth 44. The final form of self-respect is leaving without needing to be understood. No dramatic exits, no final speeches, just clarity. Quiet, whole, steady clarity. You don't need closure. You don't need the last word. You just need to be done. So what does that look like? You wake up one morning and feel no urgency to check your phone. Not to see if they messaged. Not to reread old conversations. Not to prepare your next response. Because something inside you has finally closed, not in bitterness, but in peace. You realize the apology never came. The respect was never there. The love was always conditional. And instead of spinning in that realization, you breathe. You make your tea. You stand in the sun. You move through your day. You don't need revenge. You don't need validation. You don't need to be proven right. You just feel whole. That's the quiet miracle Jung spoke of, the moment your identity no longer relies on how others treat you, because you finally met yourself and didn't flinch. So now let me ask you one last question. What's the cost of staying small? What's the price of being agreeable, palatable, nice while your soul silently screams? You've been taught to fear the consequences of truth. But what about the consequences of silence? Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that privilege, it's earned. Through shedding, through grief, through disappointing those who only loved your mask. Now you're here, awake, unmasked, unshaken, and something begins. You start attracting truth. Not crowds, not noise, but people who have done their own work. People who respect your no as deeply as your yes. People who don't shrink from your depth. Your life becomes lighter not because the weight disappears, but because you no longer carry what was never yours. Your days become quieter not from loneliness, but from peace. And your soul, it begins to sing, not with words, but with presence. This is what it means to embody all 44 truths. You no longer live for validation. You no longer bleed for connection. You no longer abandon yourself to belong. You live, you breathe, you rest, and in your rest you rise.